Dear Reddit users, what's the most stupid thing you've seen a teacher do? Kicked a flaming bin across a classroom. This sounds interesting. Elaborate. We had just come into science class and were being a bit rowdy, and the teacher, Scottish guy who was a soccer coach at some point, was already in a shit mood. We were doing some experiment with a match, and one of the kids threw his match in the bin, still alight. The teacher smelt the smoke and turned to see this bin on fire. He screamed to know who did it, and when no one owned up, he just booted this bin across the class. Luckily I didn't hit anyone and was quickly extinguished once it landed. Funny as shit to remember back, but the sight of a very pissed off Scotsman kicking a flaming bin is still worrying. A push teacher this year never actually teaches. The class follows the formula of day 1. Read and highlight a note packet, answer some questions. Day 2. Read about the subject in the textbook for an entire period. Day 3. Quiz. That's essentially the homework packet, except number of required examples go down. List 5 causes of the War of 1812 to 3, for example. Throughout this whole thing, you don't see her teach at all. Sometimes we'll watch a documentary or something like that, but more than halfway into the school year, she's taught a grand total of about 10 lessons. Cut all 7 of the class iPads in half with an industrial paper cutter edit. She was recorded and didn't want to be fired, so she cut the iPads and blamed it on a student. Had a long-term sub for my math class in middle school, and one time he lost literally everybody's homework and made everybody do it all over again. About a week or so later, he found the folder he was keeping all the homework in and laughed about it. He's not one of my teachers, but across from my house there is this college professor who lives there. I once saw him trying to shovel snow with 2 fucking shovels. Needless to say, he had an accident and was yelling for his wife to help him get up. Lol. Held a student from the ear while insulting him and hitting him in a private school. Although the kid was a jerk, the teacher shouldn't have done that. In 6th grade, I wrote a haiku with the word icicles in it. My teacher insisted I spelled the word incorrectly and had me get a dictionary. Then told me that dictionary was wrong, to get another. The second dictionary was also wrong, of course. She still insisted that I was wrong, and icicles was the incorrect spelling. I still remember Mrs. Barnes telling 11-year-old me the fucking dictionary was wrong. And my mom telling me when I got home that life isn't fair, and that I'd have a boss like that someday. Mom was right. I had a teacher in middle school who pushed a girl in her desk, one of those nifty all-in-one desks, against a wall, because she called him out for being a jerk. When me and 5 other students talked to the principal about it, she said that he's only 1 year from retirement, so they aren't going to do anything. He would frequently yell at and insult students. This included cuss words more often than not. I wasn't in the class, but a teacher at my school got in trouble for duct taping a kid's hands and mouth. I don't remember, but he must have been fired. I went to a huge school, so I didn't even know who the teacher was. Apparently the kid wasn't really freaked during the incident, but the rest of the class was fucking traumatized. I had a substitute teacher write on one of the newly installed smartboards with permanent marker despite our protests. She told us we didn't know what we talking about. My high school building was only 3 years old when I started as a freshman, so they had all of the new for the time technology. Every single teacher had signs up on their smartboards when they were absent that specifically said not to write on it because of subs like this. My French teacher parked her car in a no parking zone when during the break a towing service appeared and started loading her car. It took him quite a while, but she was nowhere to be found, probably smoking. Eventually she took notice, stormed down the stairs and reached the schoolyard just to see her car taken away before her eyes. She wasn't very liked since she was very strict, so the whole thing was rather hilarious to us. Middle school teacher was always drinking out of a flask. He said it was goat's milk. Which is the worst lie ever. A. What white bread American just drinks unrefrigerated goat's milk they keep in their desk? B. Who drinks anything but liquor from a hip flask? C. If it were milk, you would be like, don't worry kids, it's just milk. It was alcohol. He got fired. My physics AP teacher came into class one day and complained about how she dripped and spilled coffee on her book bag, which had her laptop in it. She couldn't get it working for the warm-up, so she had us work on a lab. She then went out of the room and returned with a 90s hairdryer and proceeds to dry her computer with it. She also ripped something in her knee and has crutches, but never uses them or uses them wrong. She moves them but walks on both feet. She also does the practice problems wrong and complains about them being weirdly worded. She's not the smartest. My career prep teacher would eat baby food every day. While he was teaching, my friends used to make my geometry teacher quack for us. My marine bio teacher put salsa into his coffee and sang about donkeys all the time. He was really interesting. Would always comment on how beautiful his hair was. He was bald. Edit. There was a teacher at my school. I wasn't in the class, but apparently she would pop pills in class and not teach. Then one day she got fed up with one of her classes and started throwing textbooks everywhere and crying. She got fired. My old environmental science prof was generally a great teacher, but when it came to using the internet, he'd have a video up on YouTube. The cursor would be somewhere on the timeline, so a thumbnail for that part of the video would be on top of the currently playing part, and he'd always just be like, why does it do that? Every single video. Not me, but another kid was constantly told to shut up when he wasn't even talking. Like someone on the other side of the room would be talking, and she screamed that if the kid wasn't quiet, he would go to the principal's office. I don't think it was hearing problems, but pretty stupid. Also had a teacher try to be hip with kids by playing Fortnite and giving people candy. Also had a teacher almost fresh out of college and was funny and cool, but we had flannel Fridays, and he handed out flannels we could keep. Is it just me or are teachers trying too hard to be cool when you can just have people respect you? My teacher dropped the same marker 3 times, but it was in a stupid time frame. She dropped it, picked it up, continued. Then not 5 seconds later, she dropped it again, and the class kind of chuckled quietly, and she made a Butterfingers comment about it or something. Then, before getting back to the board, she dropped it again. This time the whole class couldn't stop laughing about how ridiculous it was. My science teacher in 6th grade misinformed the class by saying, hydrogen doesn't have any neutrons, but we just add one because it can't exist without it. The next day, I call her out and correct her in front of the whole class, but she just brushes it off and says thank you for that tidbit of information. Not something the teacher did, but something he said. I had a physics teacher once tell me that Mars was hotter than Earth because it was red. Not really seen her do it, but I once had a teacher who told me, an identical twin, that identical twins have the same fingerprints. When I called her out on it, she absolutely would not believe me, and then proceeded to tell me that I'm in fact not an identical twin, even though I am. Oh my god. My teacher in grade 4 was introducing the class to debating. Now, in debating, a team is given a position or a side of an argument that they must argue in favor of, even if their personal opinion is different. It's very structured, and arguments have to be presented in a particular fashion. Being convincing and drawing in relevant data can help you a lot. Anyway, she allocates me to be a person who has to argue for the death penalty, and someone else in the class to argue against it. I say sure and prepare my arguments for the next 10 minutes. As soon as the debate starts, it's me versus the rest of the class. Everyone is hollering my way, calling me an asshole and asking how I could possibly personally take such a position. I sit there aghast at the way they're all treating me, and I remind my teacher that I was forced to choose this side and have prepared arguments for it, and I asked why she let the class derail the debate. Lo and behold, she says, "You Sir Fuxelet, I am very disappointed in you and your stance, and you should know better. Go fuck yourself, Mrs. Harlem." Okay, so this isn't as bad as these other comments, but I still felt it fit. So in my English class, our teacher promised us new seats for the next class. A month goes by and they still hadn't given us the new seats. A student finally tells them that we were pissed that we hadn't gotten the new seats, and then our teacher starts complaining about how we were ungrateful little shits. Those were their exact words. So way back 5th grade, I used to have a math teacher who would always get into rants about how we are so stupid, and would brag about how her kids are so smart. Anyways, my friends and I would always act stupid and purposely say incorrect answers and fuck up homework. This led her to spend the whole class talking about how her kids were so smart, and how they would never do this, and get time to do homework no matter what. Needless to say, we often didn't have math. Sex ed instruction, girls, only. Never touch yourself. Sure, you're going to wash your breasts, wash your vagina, but never, ever touch yourself. Whoops. Our science teacher misspelled science in 6th grade. I corrected her, which I shouldn't have out of respect. However, she then went on to very viciously argue with me about why she spelled it as she did, and why it was right, and basically how stupid I was being. Another student stuck up for me and I'm pretty sure showed it to her in the dictionary. It was pretty friggin' stupid in every way possible. The school computer broke that day. Since there was a test around the corner, he didn't want us to miss a day of reviewing. He hooked his own personal laptop to the projector, and it automatically turned on. He didn't know this, so we saw him going through his browser and closing porn tabs and clearing his search history, cookies, etc. We didn't say anything and I don't think he ever noticed. This was community college BTW. This was when I was in middle school. The teacher surprised us with a surprise geography test for which obviously no one had studied. All we had to do, though, was write down the names of the countries that surround our country on a map. I did well because my grandpa has maps all over his house as decorations, so it was easy peasy, but the next day the teacher actually showed us the worst graded tests and started criticizing each one by saying stuff like, "How stupid is this one? You think Europe is a country we border?" And just publicly shaming students for not knowing the names of the countries we border. We were kids. And now that I think about it, we haven't been taught about it before, so instead of shaming us, she should have taught us about it. I mean, isn't it the purpose of going to school? Every time I think about it, I feel that she was being beyond dumb. The teacher arrived late to the classroom during midterms. The entire class was just waiting outside and spent the vast majority of the day talking and such. By the time she arrived, there were only 20 minutes left of class time. Everyone asked if we were going to take our midterms on another day because she was so late. She answered no, and added that other classes finished the midterm in less than 20 minutes. I had nothing against her personally, but that was unfair. We had a temporary teacher at our school, hired after the original teacher left partly through the year, who was both a new and ineffective teacher. That wasn't a problem though. The problem was when she got so fed up with her unruly class that she yelled, "Put that water bottle down this fucking second, or I'll shove it up your ass," to her 4th grade student. This was overheard by another teacher through the open door. She was sent home that day, with multiple witnesses corroborating what was said, and didn't come back. Told the troublemaker to stop throwing stuff at the fan because he could break it. The AC was broken and we were in the middle of a heat wave, so the fan was our only relief, or hurt someone. He then left the room to talk with another teacher. He shouldn't have left. He came back to a broken fan, a kid with a black eye, and a room soaked in orange juice. The kid threw his drink bottle at the fan, and the guard came off, so he got his drink back, took the lid off and threw it again. We still don't know why he filled it with Oj.